Brian, how much of the combine and what you see from the players here and talking to them goes into the overall draft kind of build that you have?
Sure. Really important. It's a really important part of the decision-making process. Obviously, it's there's still a long ways to go and a lot of other pieces to it, but I think this is obviously a big part of it. You know, the medical evaluations are significant. For me, this is the first time I get to kind of put my hands on these players and talk to them. For the first time. Obviously, our scouts have done that quite a bit through the fall and the spring. But for me, this is kind of the first time I really get to see them up close. So it's a big part for me. Very important.
Brian, for years you've been evaluating players that might fit with Mike McCarthy's offense. How different is it to work with a new coach in a new scheme and try to get players that would fit that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say from a scheme point of view it's a whole lot different, the scouting part of it. It's new. I mean, Mike was there for 13 years, so obviously there's a lot of change in the building, and it's exciting. But from a scheme evaluation, we still go through our process. There's some little tweaks here and there that are different, but for the most part, it's pretty much we'll go about our process the same. So.
But Brian, do you have to get Matt a different type of player than maybe you would have gotten Mike?
No, I don't think so. I think certainly there's some differences in their offense and what they're looking for, and there's some minor things that we'll kind of adjust. But for the most part, football's football. We're looking for good football players that can do a variety of things, and that hasn't changed.
Where do you see the situation with Randall Cobb playing out as of right now?
Randall's been a great player for us. He's one of the all-time Packers, and we're kind of still putting that puzzle together. Obviously we had draft meetings and free agency meetings. Now we're here at the Combine, and as we get all the information together as we approach the next few weeks, we'll kind of have a better idea of all that.
In your initial interview with Matt LaFleur, and how much, if anything, did his affiliation with Sean McVay kind of come through in that interview?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the affiliation with Sean. It was more about the success that he's had. When he was at Washington and Atlanta and then LA. I thought obviously I talked to a lot of people about him before we had the interview and was very impressed with what they had to say about him. And I thought it said a lot too that he could have stayed in LA. He wanted to call plays, and he went to Tennessee and had to do some things differently there with that personnel group, and did a really good job there. So was really impressed with the first sit down and kind of how he handled things, his passion and his kind of vision for our team.
Brian, this time of year, a lot of the focus is on incoming rookies, but how much do you need development from young guys like Warren Burks and Devon Moore, who you didn't get really a lot from last year?
Yeah, it's critical. I mean, I think obviously, we always talk about second-year jumps and things like that, but it's not just them. It's even, guys who have been in the league, 10 years. I mean, it's always about getting better each day, and to come together as a team. So it's those things are going to be vital for us to have the success we want to have.
Brian, you had Taysom Hill as a rookie. What have you thought about what he's contributed for the Saints?
Yeah, I think they've been really creative in how they've used him and used his skill set. He was always a really good football player, really versatile football player, and they've certainly found ways to use him that have helped their football team.
To see, a team take their quarterback, out of from under center to allow Taysom to have his opportunity.
Yeah, like I said, very unusual, but it certainly helped him, and you got to give him credit for having the guts to do it. Yeah.
With the coaching searches and stuff going on, where are you scouting-wise? Are you right on schedule, or was it a little bit of catch-up mode, or where are you guys standing?
I'm on schedule now. I think obviously through the December period and January period where some of those things took my attention away, I probably got a little bit behind. But once we got to the end of January and through draft meetings, then I'm kind of back to where I would always be. So.
A lot of fans always talk about Aaron Jones and wonder what he can do in a feature role. Do you ever see him getting into a feature role, or is that always small work?
Yeah, I think the nature of the NFL, it's tough for backs to have to have one back kind of carry the load. Aaron's certainly capable. You obviously got to continue to condition his body so he can be available all the time. But obviously when he's on the field, he's a difference maker for us, and we want him out there as much as we can.
Ryan, how important was it that the league allowed? They just invited some guys, and then they allowed them back for the interview.
Right.
How important was that for you guys this week? For guys?
Yeah, I think it's really important. Obviously, this is a working event for us. I know that there's many other reasons people are here, but for us, it's very much a working event, and trying to spend as much time with these players as we can, and having them all in one place is obviously helpful for that. And a lot of times, these guys you're talking about are the guys we need to talk to the most. So I think it was important that they allowed them to come and go through that process. Because you only have so many opportunities between now and the draft to really put your hands on them and get to know them. So.
It is 15 minutes ultimately. What can you glean in 15 minutes that you haven't gleaned from all the background research you've already done?
Sure. Well, obviously we have a ton of work done on these guys, and we've kind of narrowed it down to specific questions we might need answered on each guy. So 15 minutes isn't a lot of time, but if you're prepared and you know what you're looking for, you usually can get some of those answers. And sometimes it's just sitting in front of them and kind of seeing them how they present themselves, and just kind of putting a voice and a personality to the guy you saw on tape.
Does that stuff matter versus the 40 time in the game? How do you weigh each of those three?
It's all a piece of the puzzle. I do think that ultimately it's the tape. You go back to tape and how they play. What they've done on the field in the last 3 or 4 years is probably what you're going to get. And so that's the most important thing, is how they play the game. These other things do matter, how they fit into your organization, your culture, but really it comes down to performance.
Evaluating quarterbacks in general, obviously there's some things that can be developed over time. Are there certain traits of quarterbacking that you feel can't be taught, that either a guy has it or they don't, in your mind?
There probably is. I mean, obviously you're looking for a winner, a guy who can lead a team, who can manage a huddle. I think when I first started under Ron Wolf, we always kind of use when the guy steps on the field, does the tilt in his team's favor. I think that's what you're always trying to look at. Different quarterbacks have different skill sets, but when they walk out on that field, you want it to tilt in their favor. Obviously, we always use Brett as an example there. When he was at Southern Miss, they beat teams like Alabama and beat teams that they shouldn't beat. And I think that's what you're looking for. To kind of answer that question, it's pretty elusive, but that's one of the things I think that we challenge our scouts to try to find.
Brian, what was your evaluation of the rookie wide receivers you drafted last year?
Was really happy. I think they each had their moments during different times of the year. That transition to the NFL game can be a big one. A lot of receivers don't usually see production until second or third year, and I thought those guys had a lot of challenges, and they met them they met them head on and gave us help, especially down the stretch. Both EQ and Valdez Scantling had big moments, and J-Mon was a little bit behind that, but at the same time he worked every day, showed up. We saw definite improvement through the year, and I think the future for those three guys is pretty bright.
What's your connection with Milt Hendrickson? What do you think he kind of adds to the personnel department now?
Yeah. Obviously, he's experienced scout. He spent most of his time in the Midwest. He was also a pro scout early in his career in Baltimore. I coached with Milt at UW La Crosse way back then, so I've known him for a very, very long time. He's very much a fit with the kind of the staff that we have now. They knew that a lot of those guys knew him already, and it's been pretty seamless. And it's really just another guy that I trust. It kind of just help us put this thing together,
How important is free agency with you guys? I know draft is the number one thing, but how you then fill that void after you get the draft and then going through free agency?
Sure. Free agency is a small market. There's not a ton of players in that market, but it's I think it's a tool that can help us with our roster. But I think you have to be careful because certainly the amount of money that these guys are making in free agency can hinder you down the way. So it's a tool that I think that we'll try to be in every conversation, and then when the right opportunities present themselves, we'll be ready to go. But the way we build our team, the foundation of our team, will always try to be through the draft.
Brian, with Aaron Rodgers and identifying Matt as a coach, how important was it to you to have a coach that had worked directly with top quarterbacks like Matt Ryan?
Yeah, I think it was important. Obviously, we have one of the best that's ever played the game, and our team is built specifically on offense around him. So certainly that was an important factor moving forward. I think obviously he's very, very important to our team. So that relationship is always important, but for us it's very significant. So that was an important part of how we went about it.
During your player interviews here, do you play video clips of some of their plays in college, and how's that a tool to figure out their football IQ?
Yeah, we've always done that, and this year we're doing a little bit different. Our assistant coaches, have the iPads. Technology's kind of allowed us to be more efficient with some of those things. So there's two kind of interview setups. Obviously, we have the 60 interviews in our room where we get the 15 minutes. But then over at the in the Crown Plaza, there's another area where our assistant coaches can spend more time with these guys, and more than 60 players. So they're utilizing that, and we've always had video clips in there to kind of just to have these guys take us through their offense or defense to kind of see how well they know it. Can they just adjust and speak off the cuff when they need to, and kind of throw some curveballs at them to see if they can adjust. And correct, absolutely, yeah. So it's at the same time, like we were talking before, it's 15 minutes, so you got a lot to get to, yeah, it's a valuable tool.
I would assume that with all the rules, you're very limited. Well, LaFleur's very limited in getting with, say, like Rodgers or any other players to try to implement what he wants to do right now, even though that he's very new. How does that work?
Yeah, well, we'll see. The players come in. I think they're coming in early April, and whenever we haven't had a lot of that kind of change in Green Bay, where we're implementing a lot of new things. But even like when Mike Pettin came in last year, there were some tweaks, and there's always kind of a learning curve, and this will be significant for us in April. I mean, April and May and all that, all those early times will probably be a little bit more less redundant than they have been in the past because it's going to be new. I think at the same time that can be a really positive thing for our players, especially some of our players who have been around for a long time, because it'll challenge them and hopefully bring out the best in them.
See the compensatory picks come out and you guys not get one.
Right.
You've talked before about philosophically being in conversations, but how does that affect your still building through the draft approach when if you're going to be in those conversations, you're not going to get those picks as often?
Right. Sure. I think obviously you look at it, and you plan it out over the who are you going to lose, and if you go after how's that all going to play out, what's the balance there? I think it's kind of a year-to-year thing. I think we're always in the mode of trying to win a championship in this particular year. So as far as free agency is concerned, if there's a player out there, an opportunity that we feel that can do that, the compensatory process isn't going to hold us back from doing that. There's other ways to acquire picks, and I believe in having a lot of picks. I think that's important, and certainly we'd like to get them through the compensatory process. I think if you're a healthy, vital team, that's probably what's going to happen. But there are times when, the decision to win now and maybe overrides that.
Speaking of multiple picks and being able to use them, have you started gaming out scenarios with the board, having 2 first-rounders, having a couple extra down the road to how you might be able to maneuver?
A little bit. I think as we get into early April, I'll really start focusing what we can do, and those conversations with other teams will pick up, and you really start to kind of see what you can do. I feel better about it once our board gets a little bit more settled. Usually the 10 days after the combine is when our board really gets settled to where it'll stay most of the way through. So then you can kind of start seeing where the strengths of the boards are and stuff like that. So those scenarios will you think about them, you look at them, but they'll pick up mid-March through April.
You were still working on the pod puzzle. What about Clay?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, Clay's obviously been. I mean, he'll be a Packer Hall of Famer. He's been a great player for us for a long time. He's still playing at a very, very high level, and we'll kind of get to that as we go over the next 2 weeks.
Brian, with 2 more, please. With the defensive line, you had your regulars kind of all got hurt at different times last year. Nobody wanted that, obviously, but what did that mean for the development of kind of the depth and those guys who came up behind them? I mean, what that means for the future that you have?
Yeah, I thought we saw some really positive sides. Obviously, Kenny Clark, has turned into a dominant player for us, and then Mike Daniel was, steady Eddie like he always has been. But I thought the ability, late in the year, Montrevious Adams and Lancaster, and to see those guys do some really, really good things, gave us some pretty good hope going into this year that they could be significant factors for us.
Brian, you spent an awful lot of money on what kind of bang do you think you got for that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Jimmy had a productive year for us last year. Was really, really proud of him. He fought through a lot of things just to be out there. Guys that have played as long as he has don't have to do that. So his professionalism was on display each and every day. And I look forward to seeing what he can do for us this year.